name's Steve Sickel. It's great to meet you. Great conference so far. My first EyeforTravel conference, and I tell you what, so much really interesting conversation. I'm hopeful we'll continue that. I was supposed to be on a panel with two of my competitors, and I think when they heard that I was here, they all scrammed out of fear that RoomKey's here, so they all scrammed. It's just me. So there's a conversation that Susan and I will have, but I wanted to introduce you first to RoomKey. But before doing that, I thought it makes sense to really just sort of take a step backwards and talk about and kind of address and identify the problems that exist in third-party distribution. Thank you. Which really inform why RoomKey was founded. And some of you know RoomKey, some of you don't, but over the next 30 minutes, you all become familiar. So why RoomKey was founded, which then can start to talk about how does RoomKey help suppliers drive this direct booking. And there's just so much to talk about, this challenge and the friction with suppliers and third parties with direct booking. And I think we get hung up on technology and all that sort of thing. I think I just want to go back and address the business issues. Now, I'm a travel veteran. I was 10 years with airlines, Continental Airlines then, 13 years on the hotel side. I worked with Intercontinental Hotel Group and left there as sort of head of their revenue systems and delivery, and now the last couple years with RoomKey. I'm not a technologist. I'm more of a marketing guy. So if you throw technology questions at me, please just hold them. I don't know. I have some of my technology folks here and might be able to answer it. But as we get into it, let's talk about what's wrong with the industry. And I tell you what's wrong with the industry, which is what's wrong with a lot of industries. And I pulled a couple examples. These are kind of crappy pictures, but of what's wrong with our industry, because we have all taken such advantage of customers in the way that we talk to them. And we have trained customers to be skeptical. I love this picture, the 100% discount store. It must be free because it's 100%. Now that's clever, and everyone looks at that and goes, well, that's the problem with marketing. Of course, that can't be true. You have these sorts of things that wrinkle cream, you can go from sort of Sally Leatherface to Miss America in just minutes by applying some cream through, and they disclaim it by saying, that's just a simulated imagery. My favorite is the push-up muscle shirt. And all you got to do, don't work out, all you got to do is throw the shirt on and everything gets pushed in the right place. And I like how they use this to show you that it's really for real because he left a little bit out at the bottom to show you that it really does work. If he just tucks that in, it'll make another six-pack. So that's an extreme case, right? But we are as guilty, perhaps not to the same degree, in our industry. And maybe it's because of the way we message. Now, we have bombarded our customers with this smokescreen of best rates. And everyone says, best rate, lowest rate, and all that. And customers, to a customer's mind, best rate must mean there's only one place that can be best. Best is singular. And we all know, it's a little secret we all sort of share, that best just means we're all selling the same rate. The Marriott rate for $100 is the same rate that Marriott's selling, that Expedia is selling, that Booking.com. So we can all say we have the best rate because it's all the same rate. Customers don't think of it that way. And when they get confused because they see all these messages and they get jaded. Another thing that confuses customers and causes them to be skeptical is in the way that we display. Now, this particular third-party site has chosen to dim certain hotels. And if those of you unfamiliar, I'm sure everyone's familiar with dimming. Dimming is when you remove content from a hotel's listing to make it less attractive. Now, that's not good for the customer. It's good maybe for the third-party site who's trying to exert influence or power or whatever, but it's bad for customers. And all this stuff happens, and we do stuff that sort of punish and challenge customers because we're not being as customer-focused as we are. And then we scratch our heads and go, why do customers visit 7 sites before they make a booking? Well, it's because we do all this crap, right? So there's lots of other things we could talk about, but these are the sorts of things that became the reason for RoomKey to be founded. Now, RoomKey, for those of you who are not familiar, RoomKey is a joint venture founded by 6 hotel companies as a way of solving for some of these shortcomings in third-party distribution. So we were founded by these 6 hotel companies. We sell all hotels, but we were founded and owned by these 6 hotel companies. And so as we get sort of thinking about, we get all wrapped around the axle of this, this struggle, and we call it a war, and we use these sort of warlike images between third parties and suppliers for the booking. I think often we get wound up in that and we forget what it is that we're trying to solve for. And so I thought we would just sort of step backwards and say, what is it that customers want in the shopping and buying experience? What is it that hotel owners want? And I would suggest to you that the first question gets asked pretty often, the second question gets asked much less often. And in some cases, I think there are some who feel like the second question, answers to that are in conflict with the first, or in conflict perhaps with the third party's success. RoomKey, obviously, because we're founded by hotel companies, treat these questions equally. And we are in the business of figuring out we're sort of in that and business. How can we satisfy guests' needs and satisfy owners' needs? Which begs the question, well, what are those needs? And look, I'm going to very simply talk about these, and you can all go, oh, I've got research, he missed this and he missed that. Yeah. But when we really boil it down, I think we do a pretty good job in this industry of overcomplicating things. When you really boil it down, I think these three horses are the ones that you want to lean into for the leisure stay, which is the stay, the sort of the stay occasion that we focus on at RoomKey and most third parties focus on. It's choice, it's price, it's protection. What do I mean by that? Choice, of course, they want one-stop shop. They want to see all the available choices in one easy way, in one easy presentation. They want price. They're confused by price. They search everywhere to make sure they're getting the best price. They're confused. They want to make sure they don't have the best price. They want to make sure they have a better price. And lastly, they want protection. What does that mean? They want to make sure that their reservation is protected, their data is protected. 40% of customers have a jaded or have some angst about booking through third parties because they worry, will the reservation will it be right? Will it be lost? Will it be a big pain in the ass if I have to change it? That's the kind of things that customers want from their shopping and buying experience. What do hotel owners want? Well, of course, they want the booking, but they want it at a reasonable cost of sale. Great, give me that booking, but don't kill my margin as a result of it. Can I have that booking at a reasonable cost of sale? It's not unreasonable to ask. They want no biasing. They say, hey, look, let me compete on a level playing field. I'm building up my brands, and I'll put my brands against the competition and let the best guy win. But don't put in artificial biases that sort of tip the scales sort of unnecessarily and arbitrarily. And lastly, they want to have a relationship with their guest. If you source me a guest for my hotel, don't get in the way of me building a relationship with that guest, especially in the pre-arrival phase, which happens a lot. Let me start to get to know the guest. Let me build a relationship with the guest. Let me figure out how to prepare for them as they and before they enter my hotel. How can we solve for all of these things, not just one half of them? And that's what RoomKey tries to do. So very good. Look, this is not a RoomKey commercial, but it does sort of speak to what it is that I think this tension between third parties and suppliers gets to. So look, RoomKey, right, we sell all these hotels. We've got a bunch of coverage, and we sell everyone beyond just our founding hotels. Price, let me come back to that. Protection, we operate like a Meta. We send you to the hotel company's branded site to do the booking once you've selected who you want to book with. So that we also get all the benefits of booking direct, points, perks, all that. Cost of sale, we have written into our charter at RoomKey that we are obliged by contract that as we do better and we get more bookings, we will reinvest, and we generate margin from that. We are obliged to reinvest a portion of that back into lowering cost of sale. This is a win-win situation that exists in most industries, that scale economies, buy more, get better terms. It doesn't exist in this industry. RoomKey is obliged by contract, by our charter, to do that. So as we sell more of your hotels, we are obliged to ultimately lower your commission levels. I can tell you today, RoomKey could drop our commissions by 25% today and still operate the business profitably. We've held on that decision because we want to grow a little bit more before we do. Biasing, again, written into our charter, we are not allowed to bias for any hotel, any brand, or any chain, or any company of hotels. The only way that we present hotels is in a way that we think is best for the customer. And lastly, we get out of the way. Once we source you a customer, you build the relationship, we don't want to get in the way. That, I think, is what everyone's looking for. And that's the kind of that symbiotic relationship that can exist between third-party suppliers, third-party distributors, and hotel suppliers. And that is what RoomKey is trying to establish and sort of reset what good looks like in this industry. I'm going to skip the next slide, but we talked about price for a bit. Let me go forward. Customers are confused by price. RoomKey, as you know, over the past, call it 2 years or so, hotel companies have started to release loyalty rates, and these rates are new, lower rates, lower than all the other published rates, available only on their website. RoomKey's negotiated with these hotel companies, and now RoomKey is the only hotel site in the world, only multi-brand hotel site in the world, where you can access these loyalty rates. Our competitors don't have it. A sample Chicago search. Here we have the Curio, which is a Hilton brand. RoomKey has a $6 advantage over Orbitz. For the Comfort, we have a $22 advantage over Priceline. The Intercontinental Chicago, we have a $14 advantage versus Expedia. These are loyalty rates that now we exclusively can display and market to customers. So customers now, and as we get our message out there, know where to find the lowest rates in a multi-brand shopping environment. So we talk about, so that's the things that we're doing, and that's RoomKey. And all this stuff is designed to help suppliers drive direct bookings at reasonable cost of sale and help to give the customer sort of a level playing field. The things we're doing in addition to drive that is we're doing these things which we call sort of these choice validation tools. And what's really interesting is when you're on a supplier site and you've done a search and you say, I kind of like this DoubleTree Times Square, what we know through analytics is that a portion of this customer's large portion will leave then and go to a multi-brand site to go shop other choices. And if you just embrace that inevitable shopping behavior and bring it forward into your environment, it actually helps. And so what we've done here, what we're calling a choice validation tool, this customer has gotten far enough down the funnel and says, I like DoubleTree Suites. We have introduced other travel options that the customer may be finding if they went off to the third-party site, and we introduced that into a Hilton environment to prevent them from leaving. What's really interesting about this as we launched it, conversion went up 40%, but what's more interesting is that the host hotel wins the booking almost more than 94% of the time. It's a counterintuitive insight that says, most people would say, if I show competitors' hotels, I'll lose bookings. No. What's interesting in this customer dynamic, the customer who will inevitably shop anyway, if you introduce competitor hotels into the shopping cycle, you're more likely to win the booking. It helps give them the confidence to make the selection and drive your booking. We're helping suppliers drive direct bookings as a result of incorporating that forward shopping behavior into their environment. The next thing I want to show you, I can only show you for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3, and I got to move off. That is a new tool that we are not yet ready to release, but it's a really cool pricing tool that we're developing and that we're about to pilot. And you'll hear me talk more about that in a couple months, too early now. But it's a really, again, a way of embracing the fact that customers are going to shop, and how can we give them the information that they want and need in order to make an informed decision. And this tool will help them see where another site might have a better rate for the particular hotel that they're shopping. So all these things are done as a way of design to help suppliers win the direct booking on terms that they want and in a way that satisfies what the customer wants.
So really interesting, because as we take a look at intermediaries, and of course, in any conference, the discussion is always direct, intermediary, one is bad, one is good. There's now direct booking conferences just for direct. Somehow RoomKey, maybe because of your ownership and because of your charter, kind of is that happy intermediary, that kind of blended best practice. But of course the question lies, I'm sure you have as big a marketing budget as both Priceline and Expedia. There's chuckles here. How do you combat budgets like those? Yeah,
it's a great question. People always say, you must not be successful because I never see you on TV, as if TV is some sort of success metric. We have what we realized early on, and any good strategy is something that identifies what you can uniquely do and you can uniquely defend. What I cannot do is outspend Expedia, outspend Booking.com. I don't have that money, I never will have that money, nor do I really care to have that kind of money. I'd rather reinvest that money into lowering commissions for hotels. So most of my traffic today comes from referral traffic. I'm not revealing anything that's not proprietary, but branded sites convert less than 10% of their visits, right? By a long shot, everyone does. Which means 90% of their visits are assets that get unutilized. through some good analytics and sort of good targeting of understanding which customers are likely to go on and keep shopping, a portion of those visitors are referred to me as sort of the brand's second best channel. If I can't, the brand voice now, if I can't close them, I'd rather have my second favorite channel called RoomKey close them for those customers who want a multi-brand environment. So I'm getting highly qualified traffic. They're in the market, they know dates, they know location, I know their dates, I know their location, I can go sell them. That's why everyone else is spending hundreds of millions of dollars to get those same leads, and I'm getting them for free. So I can operate on a much lower cost model, which allows me then to operate more leanly and to do things like lower commissions. So you know, everyone says, well, the same thing, so you're not on TV. I'm happy to fly under the radar, and we are, you know, slowly but surely stealing share and saving, literally, in literal terms, millions of dollars to hotels in lower distribution costs.
So where do hotels, since you also display, of course, and you work with all the hotels that are not just your ownership, where do they place working with RoomKey in their distribution ecosystem? Is it something that comes up at all the conversations? Because obviously, back in the revenue management, you know, they're talking about Priceline, they're talking about Expedia, MetaSearch, their own direct methods, working with companies like TripTease, all sorts of things to kind of get it. Where does RoomKey fit in?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, you know, I'll just give you, I'm not afraid to air some dirty laundry. When RoomKey was first founded back in 2012, I think it was the mentality was build it, customers will come, invest a little bit of money and not have to, and set it and forget it kind of thing. And that's not the case. That's not a recipe for success. And we as a leadership team over the past couple of years have worked pretty hard to get RoomKey become a bigger part of the overall distribution strategy. And so things like traffic referral is it's a major commitment. You know, as you do with any relationships, you have closer relationships with some than others. So we have the closest relationship with our 6 founders, which represents 78% of the branded inventory in North America. So that's a pretty good start. I'd say the degree to which RoomKey is part of the overall distribution strategy for our non-founding members is not quite as close, but we're working on that.
And I'll go to Slido in just 1 minute, but when do you see the day when the conversations then will be, let's take a look at our distribution strategy. First, let's look at RoomKey. Oh, then there's those OTAs, Meta, and you know, let's figure out how much we're going to pay in direct. You've made great strides, clearly, in the last couple of years. I mean, truly, I wasn't aware of a lot of these things, and I'm taking copious notes. But when do you get a front seat at the table?
Well, it's all sort of driven by volume, isn't it? We're on a great growth path. We doubled our bookings in 2016 with the release of our new value proposition around the loyalty rates, which we released in 2016. So we were up about 108% year on year. This year we're up 53, 55%, which is great hockey stick growth. And I'd call us today that we are a very large, medium-sized player. And I think in about 18 months we will be 18 to 24 months will be a top-tier player. So that's the long-winded answer to your question, that when we start having booking volumes that are in the same ballpark as some of these more established players, I think that's when we'll get a lot more notice. We're on the path.
Okay. Well, a lot of questions are coming in right now about bundling and selling other stuff. So the OTAs do that all the time. They sell other stuff, and that's part of their value. That's part of what they've said when brand.com says, well, we want all the direct bookings, and OTAs say, yeah, but people really they want to bundle car, they want to bundle air, all the questions here. So when are you going to do the same type of bundling that the OTAs are doing, and is that what the customer's really looking for?
Yeah, the move towards package is an interesting one, and that's certainly something that we would see down the line for our forward development and forward sort of enhancement of our value proposition. Call us conservative, call us focused, whatever, but we feel like we need to tackle things and plant the flag and then move on. And I don't think we've fully tackled hotels yet before we get into the bigger piece. But ultimately, we'll be driven by what customers want. There's still a fair amount of demand because of the confusion with hotels. There's still a fair amount of demand for just getting a really good hotel booking site and search site that sort of solves the inherent problems. Let us sort of get our feet firmly planted in that one, and then we'll probably move on.
Okay. So how does brand.com consider you? Do they understand the differences? I mean, I know the commissions are much lower, so it's a better deal for them. But they still, and you mentioned one thing in your slide that I kind of glammed onto, which was at the end you hand it over. It's your customer. We don't want them. They're yours. Is that enough for brand.com, or are they still saying, yeah, but we still want them to come first to our sites. We don't want them clicking around, to quote one of our friends.
Yeah, they say both of those things. Of course, and you know, again, RoomKey takes this. We have an internal mantra that says we want to be your second best channel, and we take that very seriously. We don't want to get in the way of a customer. We certainly don't want to divert a customer who would have intended to go to brand.com to shop and book. We don't want to send them over to RoomKey. That's counter to our charter and our goal, right? That would be driving a higher cost of sale, not lower. I do think, though, that all the hotel companies, and this has been painful because I used to work on the hotel side. Everyone's, you know, back in the day, everyone would recognize that hotels shopped, but then you would just ignore it and go, but they're all brand.com customers. If they've been to brand.com, that means they're brand.com customers, and they never would shop an OTA. And the reality is very different, and we're able to show that empirically, that there is a huge proportion of people who go from one to the other. So I think they've all kind of internalized that and accepted it. And for those customers who want a multi-brand shopping experience, they realize they have a fundamentally flawed value proposition. Marriott, even with all the brands that they have, only show Marriott hotels, which means someone who wants to see more than that has to go somewhere else. And they recognize that that will always exist, and if it has to exist, we want that somewhere else to be a trusted partner like RoomKey.
And we're going to end up with one of the questions being asked. This is really an interesting one. My best friend Anonymous, who I like very much, throws in a lot of good questions.
Anonymous has been asking questions all day.
Anonymous is fantastic, really. Anonymous is interested to hear your thoughts about adding airline reward inventory to the platform.
Yeah, I'd love to. Integrating with airline systems is a bitch of a. Look, I'm not a technologist, but I know that's hard. I know that's hard. Hey, I'd love that. Even integrating into hotel loyalty stuff is a real challenge. And I know, you know, there might be some sort of intermediate way to do that through, I don't know, points.com or somebody. Hey, if you got a proposal, I'm all ears. You want to grab me afterwards and buy me a water? It sounds cool.
By the way, you can pay me off, or whoever Anonymous was, for asking that
commission.
That question as well, so that's great. But Steve, I want to thank you very much. You've really enlightened us about RoomKey. Big changes in the past few years. You've done a remarkable job, and I'm very, very interested to see where it's going from here. So thank you, Steve.